Have you ever wondered why, as men grow older, the same tasks that once felt effortless, walking upstairs, playing with grandkids, even simple household chores, start to feel harder, slower, or more labored? Here's what's really going on inside your body. Inside every artery, there's a living, breathing tissue called the endothelium. Think of it like a smart skin lining the inside of your blood vessels. When it works well, it releases signals that let your arteries expand, release more blood, and deliver oxygen everywhere it's needed. But when it slows down with age, especially after age 60, that smart skin becomes rigid, less responsive, and your blood flow literally loses its spring. That's not just discomfort. That's the beginning of the cascade that leads to high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, fatigue, and increased risk of heart attack or stroke. So here's a powerful question. What if you could support your vascular system every day with something as simple as a condiment? What the research shows is that certain components in real, unrefined, extra virgin olive oil, especially the polyphenols, directly support blood vessel health by helping your endothelial cells communicate better and reduce inflammation that makes arteries stiff and resistant. This isn't just food, it's targeted nutrition with measurable effects on blood pressure and blood flow. And vinegar, especially high-quality vinegar with acetic acid, also plays a role, not in a dramatic magic cure way, but through mechanisms that gentle coax more nitric oxide production in your blood vessels, helping them relax and widen slightly, which is the physiological foundation of better circulation and stronger blood flow. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your circulatory system as a network of interconnected rubber hoses. In youth, those hoses flex easily, letting water rush through with little resistance. With age and inflammation, those hoses become like old garden hoses, stiff, less compliant, and more resistant. Even a small improvement in flexibility can dramatically increase how much water can flow through. In physiology, that flexibility comes from nitric oxide-mediated vasodilation, the relaxation and widening of blood vessels. Here's why this matters. For senior men, reduced blood flow isn't just a technical term. It can mean reduced energy, lower stamina, slower recovery after exertion, and even struggles with sexual health. And while medications exist for these individual symptoms, they do not address the root cause: poor endothelial function and chronic inflammation. This video won't just talk about taking olive oil or vinegar separately. It will show the optimal blend and timing that supports your body's biology and how to integrate it into your daily rhythm for sustained benefits. You'll learn about the precise physiological role of olive oil's polyphenols on vessel function, how acetic acid in vinegar can upregulate nitric oxide pathways, why timing with meals matters, how senior metabolism and aging arteries uniquely respond to this blend. By the end of this video, you'll have not just a recipe, but a science-rooted protocol that connects daily nutrition with real, measurable physiology, not hype, not noise, but biology you can apply today. If this approach resonates with you so far, grounded in measurable mechanisms and practical steps, consider subscribing. I post evidence-based strategies like this every day so you can take control of your metabolic health, blood flow, energy, and longevity naturally. Let's start at the true foundation, what actually happens inside aging arteries. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your blood vessels are not passive pipes. They are dynamic, living tissues lined with endothelial cells that constantly sense blood flow, nutrient levels, inflammation, and hormones. One of their most important jobs is producing a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the signal that tells your arteries to relax and widen. When nitric oxide is abundant, blood flows smoothly, pressure stays stable, oxygen delivery improves, erections are stronger, exercise feels easier. Now here's the problem. After age 60, nitric oxide production naturally declines. Why? There are three primary drivers. First, oxidative stress increases. As we age, mitochondria become less efficient. Blood sugar spikes do more damage. Visceral fat produces inflammatory cytokines. These factors generate free radicals that destroy nitric oxide before it can do its job. Second, insulin resistance develops. And this is critical. Insulin doesn't just regulate blood sugar, it also stimulates nitric oxide production in healthy endothelium. When cells become resistant to insulin, that signaling pathway weakens, less nitric oxide, more vascular stiffness. Third, the enzyme responsible for making nitric oxide, endothelial nitric oxide synthase, becomes uncoupled under inflammatory conditions. When that happens, instead of producing nitric oxide, it produces more oxidative stress. It's like a factory that starts making pollution instead of product. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine nitric oxide as oil in an engine. When levels are high, everything runs smoothly. When oil is low, friction increases. The engine overheats. Parts wear down faster. That's what happens to your arteries when nitric oxide declines. Friction rises, pressure rises, flow declines, and here's what most men misunderstand. This process begins silently years before symptoms show up: fatigue during workouts, cold hands and feet, slower recovery, mild increases in blood pressure, reduced sexual performance. These are not isolated issues, they are early signs of endothelial dysfunction. What the research consistently shows is that improving endothelial function improves blood pressure, exercise tolerance, and vascular responsiveness, even in older adults. And importantly, lifestyle interventions can restore measurable nitric oxide production within weeks. Now here's where olive oil and vinegar enter the picture. Extra virgin olive oil, especially high polyphenol varieties, reduces oxidative stress inside endothelial cells. That protects nitric oxide from destruction. It improves the environment in which nitric oxide operates. Vinegar, through its acetic acid content, improves insulin sensitivity. Better insulin signaling means better nitric oxide signaling. So instead of attacking symptoms, we are restoring upstream vascular communication. But I want to be clear, this is not magic. It's physiology. If you improve oxidative balance and insulin sensitivity, nitric oxide improves. When nitric oxide improves, blood flow improves. And if this is helpful so far, if you appreciate understanding the mechanism instead of just hearing hype, consider subscribing. I break down complex physiology like this every day so you can make decisions based on science, not marketing. Now, let's zoom in on olive oil. And I want to be precise here. Most people think olive oil is beneficial because it contains healthy fats. That's partially true, but the real vascular power of extra virgin olive oil lies in something much more specific: polyphenols. Here's what's really going on inside your body when you consume high-quality extra virgin olive oil. Polyphenols are bioactive plant compounds. In olive oil, the most studied ones include hydroxytyrosol and oleuropein. These compounds reduce oxidative stress inside endothelial cells. And remember, oxidative stress is one of the main reasons nitric oxide declines with age. What the research shows is that high polyphenol olive oil improves flow-mediated dilation, a direct measurement of how well your arteries expand in response to increased blood flow. In older adults, this is a powerful marker of vascular youthfulness. When arteries dilate better, blood pressure decreases and tissue oxygen delivery improves. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine nitric oxide as a message written on paper sent from your endothelial cells to your artery walls. Relax. Open up. Oxidative stress acts like fire. It burns the message before it's delivered. Polyphenols act like fire extinguishers. They protect the message so it can reach its destination. That protection alone can improve arterial responsiveness within hours of consumption. But here's the deeper benefit. Long-term use reduces inflammatory signaling that stiffens arteries over time. Now this is critical. Not all olive oil is equal. Most commercial olive oils are low in polyphenols due to late harvest timing, heat processing, or long storage. You want early harvest, cold-pressed, extra virgin, dark glass bottle. Strong peppery taste, that throat sting is actually polyphenols activating sensory receptors. Dosage matters too. For vascular benefit, research commonly uses about 1 to 2 tablespoons per day of high-quality extra virgin olive oil. Here's a simple protocol. 1 tablespoon with your largest meal of the day. Combine with raw vegetables or leafy greens for added nitric oxide precursors. Avoid heating it at high temperatures. Use it raw or drizzle after cooking. Now let's connect this to senior men specifically. As testosterone declines with age, body fat distribution shifts toward visceral fat. Visceral fat increases inflammation. Inflammation damages endothelial function. Polyphenols counteract that inflammatory cascade, so while olive oil may seem simple, it is targeting oxidative stress, inflammatory cytokines, endothelial protection, nitric oxide preservation, that is root cause work. And here's something else many men don't realize. Consistent intake matters more than occasional use. You are rebuilding vascular flexibility gradually. Think in terms of 6 to 12 weeks of consistent daily use. If this is resonating, if you're beginning to see that small daily inputs can shift large biological systems, consider subscribing. I share strategies like this daily for men who want long-term vascular health without relying solely on medication. Now, let's layer in vinegar. And this is where the metabolic connection becomes very clear. Because blood flow is not just about arteries, it's about metabolism. Here's what's really going on inside your body when you consume vinegar, specifically the acetic acid it contains. After you eat a meal, especially one containing carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. In response, your pancreas releases insulin. In a metabolically healthy system, insulin doesn't just move glucose into cells. It also stimulates nitric oxide production in endothelial cells, helping blood vessels relax after eating. But in insulin resistance, which affects a large percentage of men over 60, that signaling pathway weakens. Insulin rises higher and stays elevated longer, but endothelial cells stop responding efficiently. Less nitric oxide is produced. Arteries stay tighter. Blood pressure increases. Circulation declines. What the research shows is that acetic acid improves insulin sensitivity and reduces post-meal blood sugar spikes. It slows gastric emptying slightly and improves glucose uptake into muscle tissue. The result? Lower insulin spikes and more efficient insulin signaling. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine insulin as a key and your cells as locks. In insulin resistance, the locks become rusty. The key still turns, but poorly. More keys are needed. More insulin circulates. That excess insulin contributes to inflammation and endothelial stress. Acetic acid acts like lubricant for the locks. It makes the system respond more efficiently again. And when insulin signaling improves, nitric oxide signaling improves with it. This is the hidden link between metabolism and circulation. Now let's talk practical protocol. The most effective form for this purpose is raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar or high-quality red wine vinegar. Dose, 1 tablespoon diluted in water. Taken 10-15 minutes before a carbohydrate-containing meal, never take it straight. Always dilute it to protect tooth enamel and the esophagus. Now here's where it becomes powerful for senior men. As men age, muscle mass declines, a process called sarcopenia. Muscle is one of the primary tissues that clears glucose from the bloodstream. Less muscle means higher post-meal glucose spikes. Higher glucose spikes mean more oxidative stress and worse endothelial function. So when you improve glucose handling with vinegar, you are reducing one of the primary drivers of vascular stiffness. This is not about detox. It's about improving the biochemical environment in which your blood vessels operate. And if this breakdown is helpful, if you value understanding the metabolic root causes rather than just hearing surface-level advice, consider subscribing. I post practical, physiology-based strategies like this every day. Now let's bring this together, because the combination is where the real leverage happens. Olive oil protects nitric oxide. Vinegar improves the metabolic signaling that produces nitric oxide. Together, they create a vascular environment that favors dilation, flexibility, and sustained blood flow. But the way you combine them matters. Here's the simple, effective protocol for senior men. The Daily Vascular Blend. 1 tablespoon high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil. 1 tablespoon raw apple cider vinegar or red wine vinegar, a pinch of sea salt. Optional, cracked black pepper or dried oregano. Whisk together and drizzle over leafy greens or steamed vegetables. Consume this with your largest meal of the day, ideally lunch or early dinner. Why with a meal? Because this is when glucose and insulin dynamics are most active. The vinegar blunts excessive glucose spikes. The olive oil slows carbohydrate absorption and reduces oxidative stress. Together, they protect endothelial signaling during the exact moment your blood vessels are under the most metabolic strain. Let me explain this with a whiteboard example. After a meal, imagine a temporary stress wave moving through your bloodstream, rising glucose, rising insulin, rising oxidative byproducts. In a younger body, this wave resolves quickly. In a 65-year-old body with insulin resistance, that wave lingers and damages the endothelium repeatedly over time. This blend dampens that wave. It doesn't eliminate glucose. It doesn't replace healthy eating. It reduces the amplitude of metabolic stress. Now, here's something critical. Consistency beats intensity. You're not looking for a dramatic one-day change. You're improving endothelial tone gradually over 8 to 12 weeks. Track these markers. Morning blood pressure, energy levels after meals, exercise tolerance, resting heart rate, sexual performance and responsiveness. Blood flow improvements often show up first in sexual function because penile arteries are smaller than coronary arteries. If those improve, it's often an early sign your vascular system is responding. If this is helpful so far, if you appreciate having a specific, actionable protocol instead of vague advice, consider subscribing. I share science-backed longevity strategies like this every day. Now, let's zoom out for a moment. If you only add olive oil and vinegar but ignore sleep, visceral fat, and resistance training, results will be limited. Because blood flow is a whole body system. Now let's zoom out. Because olive oil and vinegar are powerful tools, but they work best inside a system that supports vascular repair. Blood flow is not isolated to your arteries. It is influenced by your liver, your muscle mass, your sleep quality, your cortisol rhythm, and your visceral fat levels. Here's what's really going on inside your body beyond the plate. First, muscle mass. After age 60, men lose muscle at an accelerated rate if they are not resistance training. Muscle is not just for strength. It is a metabolic organ. It acts as a glucose sink. The more muscle you have, the more efficiently you clear glucose from your bloodstream after meals. Less muscle means higher glucose spikes. Higher glucose spikes mean more oxidative stress. More oxidative stress means less nitric oxide availability. So, if you are using the olive oil and vinegar blend, but not lifting weights, you are addressing only part of the equation. Protocol: resistance training, 3 times per week. Focus on compound movements, squats, presses, rows. Moderate intensity, enough to stimulate muscle without overtraining. Prioritize recovery. Even modest increases in lean muscle mass can significantly improve insulin sensitivity within 6 to 8 weeks. Second, sleep. Sleep deprivation increases cortisol. Elevated cortisol raises blood sugar. Elevated blood sugar damages endothelial cells. Poor sleep also reduces testosterone, which indirectly affects body composition and vascular health. Think of sleep as nightly vascular repair time. During deep sleep, inflammatory markers drop and growth hormone rises, both critical for endothelial maintenance. Protocol: 7-8 hours nightly. Consistent sleep schedule. No screens 60 minutes before bed. Cool, dark sleeping environment. Third, visceral fat and liver health. Visceral fat releases inflammatory cytokines that directly impair endothelial nitric oxide production. It also contributes to fatty liver, which worsens insulin resistance. The liver is central to metabolic control. If the liver is congested with fat, post-meal glucose and triglycerides stay elevated longer. That extended exposure increases vascular stiffness. Olive oil helps reduce inflammation. Vinegar improves insulin response, but reducing visceral fat through moderate carbohydrate control, time-restricted eating, 12 to 14-hour overnight fast, strength training, adequate protein intake, amplifies their effect dramatically. Let me explain this with a systems analogy. Imagine your vascular health as a symphony. Olive oil and vinegar are two strong instruments, but if percussion, sleep, strings, muscle, and brass, liver health, are out of tune, the performance suffers. When everything works together, blood flow improves at a systems level. Now here's the empowering part. You do not need perfection. You need alignment. Even implementing. The Daily Vascular Blend. Resistance training 3 times weekly. 7+ hours of sleep. A modest overnight fast can measurably improve endothelial function within 8-12 weeks. Let's bring this together in a way that is simple, practical, and powerful. Because at the end of the day, this is not about olive oil. It's not about vinegar. It's about restoring vascular intelligence inside your body. Here's what we've established. As men age, nitric oxide production declines, not randomly, but because of oxidative stress, insulin resistance, visceral fat, poor sleep, and muscle loss. The endothelium becomes less responsive, arteries stiffen, blood flow decreases, symptoms show up later, but the root cause begins much earlier. Olive oil, specifically high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil, protects nitric oxide from oxidative destruction. It lowers inflammatory signaling and improves endothelial flexibility. Vinegar, through acetic acid, improves insulin sensitivity and reduces post-meal glucose spikes. That stabilizes the metabolic environment in which nitric oxide is produced. When you combine them strategically with meals, you reduce the metabolic stress wave that damages arteries over time. Add resistance training, adequate sleep, and moderate carbohydrate control. And now you are not just improving circulation, you are restoring metabolic resilience. Let me simplify this into a weekly framework you can follow. Daily. 1 tablespoon extra virgin olive oil. 1 tablespoon diluted vinegar before or with your largest meal. 7 to 8 hours sleep. 12 to 14-hour overnight fasting window. 3 times per week. 30-40 minutes resistance training. Weekly. Track blood pressure. Monitor waist circumference. Notice energy, recovery, and sexual performance. These are your real-world biomarkers of vascular health. Now here's your challenge. Don't try to change everything. Pick one action today. Maybe it's buying a high-quality early harvest olive oil. Maybe it's committing to 3 strength sessions this week. Maybe it's setting a consistent sleep time. Implement one change and observe, because your body responds to signals. Give it better signals, and it adapts. And remember this, medications can temporarily force blood vessels open, but lifestyle restores their ability to open on their own. That's a very different outcome. If this added value, if you appreciate understanding what's happening inside your body instead of guessing, like the video and subscribe. Join others who are optimizing their metabolic health, blood flow, and longevity naturally. Your arteries are listening to what you do every day. Make sure you're giving them the right instructions.